The government has tabled a new wage offer of 5.5% for public sector workers. The employer met with labour unions at the Public Sector Coordinating Bargaining Council for a revised offer after the workers rejected a proposed 5% salary increase. The medium-term budget policy statement tabled last year makes for provision of 4.7% salary increase for public servants. The workers' demands have been revised downwards several times from an initial 12% to now 6%. Well, for more on this, I'm joined in studio by SABC News reporter Katlego Legodi. Thank you very much for joining me, sir.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Super. So that's a great development, 5.5%. That's significantly up on the current inflation level. I'm not quite sure what the latest number is because that's coming out tomorrow, but we currently stand at 2.9%. So that's like 2.6 percentage points above. What sort of reactions have you had from Labour after having reached out to them for their reaction?
Well, the workers started at 12%, and you can imagine that from 12% to where we find ourselves, the government, the employer starting at 3%, and we see the workers really not happy with where they find themselves with the employer. Actually, what they did, going into the year 2024 was to strategize in terms of how they're going to approach these wage negotiations. So in the past, we've seen them divided. We've seen government just pushing and pulling others to sign while they're not on the same page. So this time around, we see them starting this with pre-bargaining sessions where they met different unions, federations. We have FEDUSA, we have COSATU, we have SAFTU, we have independents like the South African Policing Union, SAPU, that would want to get the best for their members. Here, we're talking about teachers, we're talking about nurses, we're talking about police officials, social workers, and all of these people, they're saying that the cost of living has really left them down and out. Most of them have been looking towards this process. What they were anticipating was that this process would be concluded by the mid-term budget policy statement that was delivered in October. But we see this process moving into 2025, and you're right to say in the mid-term budget policy statement, it was a 4.7% that government had said that they're willing to stretch it all the way there. So this time around, we see new developments. There's a 5%, and the million-dollar question remains as to where the money is going to come from, because that 4.7% was something that they had budgeted for, and they had just looked at the entire process to see how then the public servants can be accommodated here. Already, we're talking about a public sector that is fragmented. Most of the workers really not happy with how things are. And really, we know very well that the public service would affect the delivery of services. If you don't have doctors, you don't have police, if you don't have nurses, and then it means that this would have an impact in terms of the delivery of services. But you find the police saying that they've been struggling because they've not had increases over time. They've not had manpower on the ground. Hence, you see that the crime levels have skyrocketed. And they're saying that it's all of these issues and developments around the public sector wages would lead us to where we find ourselves. Yeah. So now they have 21 days to take this 5.5% offer back to their members.
But then the problem is government has really hinted, or National Treasury has hinted, that as they increase wages, then it means that the headcount can reduce, which then speaks to the issue of, a lack of proper service provision because there are not enough people staffing, police stations, hospitals, etc., etc. What are economists saying about the potential of a 5.5% increase? Because that's the public sector wage bill is always something that's raised as a key concern in terms of government finances.
Yeah, the public sector wage bill is something that has been bloated. In the previous medium-term budget policy statement, we saw government and the Minister of Finance even saying that as government, they've put aside 11 billion rand. This will help in terms of ensuring that at least they encourage those that are seniors within the public sector to retire earlier so that they make way for juniors that will be coming into this space. So the bill has been that the bill is bloated. It has been common knowledge over time, and economists are questioning as well as to the government not being unrealistic in their approach here, because at the end of the day, we'll see them not being able to fulfill some of these commitments, because we saw in the 2018 agreement, and this is something that the workers always go back to say say in that multi-year agreement, the last leg, in the third year, we saw government reneging and not in any way paying for what it had committed. So now they're even questioning as well to say that we are in a slow growth economy as we speak right now. So as much as we see the workers saying that the cost of living is too high, the economy, realistically, the economy is not able to buffer, to accommodate, and to ensure that at least that 12% that they had called for is something that is accommodated. But we see them just looking at the CPI in terms of how does that affect them. This year, it's a multi-term agreement. So we see the 5.5% in the first year, 2025, 2026. And in the coming years, we see them saying that they are capping it at 4%. And this will be informed by inflation. If we see inflation then rising, then they'll move it in line with inflation. But everything else, all of these things have to be well thought of so that we don't find then the lack of job creation within the public sector, or people that would say we've graduated, we are doctors, we are nurses, we are teachers, we are sitting at home, we don't have jobs, because that is also an ultimate problem for the country as we speak right now.
All right, Katlego, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for that, and we look forward to your report on this a bit later. That's my colleague, SABC News economics reporter, Katlego Legodi.